Picture this. You're standing on the edge of the Amazon rainforest in 1925. Ahead of you stretches a wall of green so dense it swallows light. Somewhere beyond it, according to one British explorer, lies the greatest lost city on Earth, a civilization older and more advanced than anyone believes possible. And the man who is about to walk into that jungle is convinced he will find it. His name is Percy Fawcett. He will never be seen again. Welcome back to History Harbor. Tonight we're following one of the most haunting mysteries of the 20th century, the disappearance of Percy Fawcett and the legendary search for the city of Z, a story of obsession, ambition, and a jungle that has swallowed countless lives. The explorer who refused to believe. By the early 1900s, Percy Fawcett had already become famous. A former artillery officer and surveyor, he was hired by the Royal Geographical Society to map disputed borders in South America. Again and again, he ventured into regions where Europeans had little reliable knowledge. Most explorers of his era viewed the Amazon as a wilderness incapable of supporting large civilizations. Fawcett disagreed. During his expeditions, he heard stories from indigenous communities about ancient ruins hidden deep in the forest. He discovered unusual pottery, geometric earthworks, and traces of settlements that seemed far older than expected. To him, these were clues. He became convinced that somewhere in the Brazilian interior stood the remains of a forgotten city, a place he called Z. Not El Dorado. Not a city of gold. Something, in his mind, even more important, proof that the Amazon had once been home to a sophisticated civilization. At the time, this idea sounded almost absurd to many scholars. The dominant belief was that the rainforest's poor soil could never support large populations. Fawcett argued that they were underestimating both the environment and the people who had lived there. He carried with him a document known as Manuscript 512, an 18th-century account describing ruined cities somewhere in Brazil's interior. Most historians considered it unreliable. Fawcett treated it as a map written in riddles. With every expedition, the legend of Z grew larger in his mind. The final expedition. In April 1925, Fawcett set out on what would become his last journey. With him were his 21-year-old son Jack Fawcett and Jack's friend Raleigh Rimmel. The trio traveled into the remote region near the upper Xingu River in central Brazil. Fawcett intentionally kept the party small. He believed large expeditions attracted hostility and moved too slowly. Along the way, he sent letters back to his wife, Nina Fawcett. One of his final messages contained a chilling instruction: if he failed to return, no rescue party should come looking for him. He knew the jungle too well. The last confirmed sighting of the expedition occurred near a place called Dead Horse Camp, named after one of Fawcett's earlier expeditions. After that, silence. Into the green abyss. Imagine what that journey would have looked like. The air thick enough to feel like wet cloth against the skin. Insects swarming constantly. Boots sinking into mud. Rivers that appeared and disappeared with the rains. Every day requiring hours of hacking through vegetation just to advance a few miles. Fawcett was experienced, but experience did not make the Amazon safe. Food spoiled quickly. Equipment rusted. A small cut could become life-threatening in a matter of days. The rainforest was not simply a landscape, it was an environment that actively worked against anyone trying to cross it. Yet Fawcett pressed deeper. In his letters, he remained optimistic. He believed success was close. When the jungle closed behind them. Weeks passed. Then months. No letters arrived. No messengers emerged from the forest. No trace of the expedition returned. At first, many assumed Fawcett was simply delayed. The Amazon was enormous, and communication was slow. But as the years passed, concern turned into alarm. What happened to Percy Fawcett? The mystery ignited the world's imagination. Newspapers published dramatic headlines. Adventurers volunteered to search for him. Wealthy backers funded expeditions. And one by one, many of those search parties vanished into the same wilderness. The search becomes a trap. Over the following decades, more than a dozen major expeditions attempted to solve the mystery. Some found abandoned camps. Others discovered rumors, artifacts, or conflicting stories from local communities. Several searchers died from disease, drowning, starvation, or attacks. The jungle that had claimed Fawcett seemed determined to keep it secret. One expedition returned with a strange tale. Members of the Kalapalo people claimed that Fawcett had ignored warnings not to travel farther into hostile territory. Another group reported hearing that the explorers had been killed by indigenous warriors after violating local customs. Yet none of these accounts could be fully verified. No body was conclusively identified. No camp was definitively linked to the expedition's final days. Theories in the dark. Theory 1: killed by indigenous people. This remains the explanation many historians consider the most plausible. The Amazon contained numerous communities with carefully guarded territories. An unfamiliar expedition entering the wrong region could face deadly consequences. Some Kalapalo oral histories suggest that Fawcett and his companions continued beyond a safe zone and were later killed by another group. However, the accounts were recorded years after the disappearance, and details vary significantly. Theory 2: disease or starvation. The rainforest is an unforgiving environment. Malaria, dysentery, infected wounds, and food shortages have ended countless expeditions. Fawcett's party carried limited supplies and depended heavily on local knowledge. If they became lost or incapacitated, the jungle could have consumed them without leaving obvious evidence. Theory 3: they found something. This is the theory that captured public imagination. Did Fawcett actually discover ruins? Did he choose to remain? Was there a hidden settlement deeper in the forest? There is no credible evidence that he found the city of Z. Yet the absence of proof only fueled the legend. The man behind the myth. Part of what makes this story so compelling is that Fawcett himself was a contradiction. He was a disciplined military officer, but he also believed in psychic phenomena and mystical ideas that were fashionable among some intellectual circles of the time. He studied ancient legends and became increasingly convinced that lost knowledge was hidden in remote places. To critics, he was becoming obsessed. To supporters, he was a visionary. By 1925, the search for Z was no longer just an archaeological quest. It had become deeply personal. A century of clues. Over the years, supposed evidence surfaced repeatedly. A skeleton found near a river. A compass believed to have belonged to Fawcett. Stories of 3 white men living among remote tribes. Each discovery generated headlines, and each eventually collapsed under closer examination. One particularly famous claim emerged in the 1950s, when explorer Orlando Villasboas reported that the Kalapalo possessed bones said to belong to Fawcett. Tests later showed they could not be conclusively identified. The mystery remained unsolved. Was the city of Z real? For decades, scholars dismissed Fawcett's claims. The Amazon, they argued, could never have supported large urban populations. Then modern archaeology began uncovering evidence that changed the conversation. Using satellite imagery and LiDAR technology, researchers discovered extensive earthworks, roads, canals, and settlement networks hidden beneath the forest canopy. Some regions of the Amazon had once supported surprisingly large populations and sophisticated land management systems. In a remarkable twist, Fawcett may have been partly right. Not about a single grand city waiting to be found, perhaps, but about the existence of complex Amazonian civilizations that mainstream scholars of his era underestimated. The jungle remembers. What makes the Amazon unique is how completely it can erase human presence. In many environments, ruins remain visible for centuries. In the rainforest, vegetation can reclaim a settlement with astonishing speed. Trees split stone. Roots swallow walls. Vines bury pathways. If Fawcett's expedition ended in a remote area, the jungle has had more than 100 years to hide the evidence. That possibility is both frustrating and fascinating. The answer may still exist somewhere beneath the canopy, waiting for a future discovery. The legacy of the quest. Today, Percy Fawcett occupies a strange place in history. He was not simply a lost explorer. He became a symbol of humanity's fascination with the unknown. His story inspired books, documentaries, and films, including The Lost City of Z. Yet the real mystery remains unresolved. Somewhere in the vast Brazilian interior, the final moments of Fawcett, Jack, and Raleigh disappeared into the rainforest. The jungle has had a century to erase their footprints. Closing reflection. There's something unsettling about the fate of Percy Fawcett. He spent his life mapping blank spaces on the map, pushing farther than most people dared to go. And in the end, he became one of those blank spaces himself. Perhaps that's why the mystery endures. We like to believe that every disappearance can be solved, every trail eventually followed to its conclusion. But the Amazon is large enough to remind us that some stories simply vanish into the trees. Whether Fawcett died from disease, conflict, starvation, or something we still don't understand, his quest changed how the world thought about the Amazon. The explorer may have disappeared, but the question that drove him into the jungle remains alive. What was really hidden there? If this kind of forgotten history is exactly what you come here for, make sure you're subscribed to History Harbor, because this is only one mystery in a much larger harbor of stories waiting to be explored. Leave a comment and tell me which historical disappearance we should investigate next. And if you enjoyed this journey into the Amazon, give the video a like, it genuinely helps this channel grow. Thanks for exploring with me. I'll see you at the next port of call, right here on History Harbor. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment.